Hi everyone, today we are going to do some competitive programming. Basically, I will just solve a very simple beginner problem here. So we are just going to get started with how you can write programs and solve problems on platforms like CodeChef, LeetCode. So this series basically is all about competitive programming. So we are going to pick some problems and we are going to solve it live here, and I will also explain you what the problem is and how we are going to solve it in real time. And you can also ask any doubts if you want to in the chat section of this live stream. Alright, so today we are going to this is the CodeChef.com website. What you just need to do is just quickly sign in, and here you can see there is a practice and learn. Here you can go to practice problems by difficulty level, right? So we are going to pick the first problem, which is in the beginner section. And all right, so let's pick this problem, the one who knocks, and it is a beginner problem. As you can see, we will start from the beginner problems and then we will move on to easy, medium, hard, and like that. So I'm picking this problem, the one who knocks, and the code is EOOPR. So you can use this code also to go to the problem itself, right? So let's go to the problem. If you guys are able to see if there is any audio related problem or any video related problem, any buffering, please let me know in the chat section. All right, so this is the problem. First of all, we will have to understand what the problem is, and then we are going to submit the problem, the solution of this problem, right? All right, so first of all, let's try to understand this problem. Let me just zoom in so that you can see everything clearly, right? So the problem says, the problem starts from here. It starts from some quote, "I'm not in danger, Skylar, I am the danger." All right, so there is some guy who is saying to Skylar that I am not in danger, and a guy opens his door, gets shot. No, I am the one who knocks. All right, so that's the basic theme of this problem. We are just going to focus on the facts that are useful for us to this problem and not anything else, right? Next, Skylar fears Walter and ponders escaping to Colorado. Now Walter wants to clean his lab as soon as possible and get back home, right? So the problem starts from here. The first thing you need to do is write down the important constraints, all the facts that are there. So the problem is, in order clean his lab, he has to achieve cleaning level of lab as Y. Alright, so Y is basically the output or the cleaning level what Walter wants to achieve. Now the current cleaning level of the lab is X, right? So current level is X and we want the cleaning level to be Y, right? So he must choose one positive odd integer A and one positive even integer B. Note that he cannot change A or B once he starts cleaning. Alright, so from here on we are starting getting hints from the problem. So let me write the constraint here. The first constraint is that we are given some X and some Y, right? We will have to the cleaning level of X and we have the cleaning level Y. So from X to Y we will have to go, and there are some constraints given here, which is that he can only choose an odd integer A or a positive or an even positive integer B, and once he has taken the value of A or B, he cannot change it later on once he has started cleaning, right? So once we are taking a particular step, we are choosing a value of A and we are choosing a value of B, and we won't change it later. So according to this, he can perform any one of these operations for one round of cleaning, right? So he can either replace X with X plus A, or he can replace x with x minus b. Alright, so he can replace x, right? So what he can do is he can add in a integer, or he can subtract b, where a is odd and b has to be even, right? So after performing one of these operations, he will have to reach y. So we are given some x, we will have to choose the values of a and b, and we will have to reach y. Alright, so let's continue with the problem. So find the number of rounds, possibly 0, to make the lab clean. Alright, so we will have to find how many rounds will it take for Walter to clean his lab, which is basically how many steps it requires for x to reach y, right? So we have to add a or we have to subtract b, and we can do it only in one round. Now quickly we are going to see that there are some test cases, right? In input, the first line will contain t, which is the number of test cases, and each test case contains two space separated integers, which is going to be x and y, right? So you can see a sample input here. In the first line it is 3, which means we are going to take this. The first test case you can see is the value of x is 0, the value of y is 5. In the second test case, the value of x is 4 and then minus 5. Similarly, the last, which is the third case, is 0 and this number. And the output which is expected is 1, 2, 1, right? And here is an explanation which you can read. I'm just going to explain it so that you can understand it better. Alright, so let's take the first case from this sample input, right? Which is 0, 5. So the value of x is 0 and the value of y is 5. Now clearly you can see that I will have to make some changes to the value of x. I can either add an odd integer or I can subtract a even integer. And here you can see 0 plus. Now I can pick an odd integer, right? Which is a, which I can pick as 5. So it can easily give me 5. So only in one round of cleaning, right? So it is the first round of cleaning. In the very first round of cleaning, we can make x go to y, right? That is our main task. X is the initial state and y is the final state. Now from 0, I can add 5, which is an odd integer, right? So this constraint is satisfied. We can add some odd integer and then we can just get the value 5. So this is the first round of cleaning. So the output that is expected out of this case is going to be 1, right? So here you can see the sample output is 1 for the test case 1. Now let's take a look at the second case where the x is 4 and y is minus 5, right? So x, this is the second case that we are taking. X equals to 4 and y equals to minus 5, right? Again we will have to perform these operations one by one, right? Every operation will be the one round of cleaning and we will have to make sure that this x is converted into y. That is our only original task, right? Let's see how we can do this. Now this is 4, which is our x value. Now we have to add some integer to get to minus 5, or we can subtract some integer. It will have to be an even integer. So in order to change the value of x to y, you can see I will have to do some subtraction, right? So what should I subtract from 4 to get minus 5? right? What we can easily do, we can find out the difference, right, which will be d, and it will be equal to y minus x. Y is minus 5, minus x is 4, right? So the answer difference will be minus 9, or let's take the magnitude only, which is 9, right? So I will have to subtract 9 from x, then only I will get y equal to minus 5. But you can see here, we are not allowed to subtract an odd integer. You can see in the problem it is given that when you are subtracting something, you will have to make sure that b should be even. And here you can see, if I try to subtract 9, it is not a even integer, it is an odd, right? So we are not allowed to do this operation. So this operation is restricted. So this is not the first round of cleaning. So let's see how we can choose the values of a and b. In the explanation, you can see for the second case, you can convert x to y by choosing a equals to 1 and b equals to 10, right? So let's see. We're just trying to understand the problem first. Once we will understand the problem, we can automatically write the code for it, right? So uh, in the problem, we are given this explanation that we can choose the value of a as 1 first, right? So 1 is odd, so the condition is satisfied. So what we will do is we will add 1 to this integer. The result we get is 5. Then the problem says that this is the first round of cleaning where we have added 1. Then in the explanation it says that in the second round of cleaning you can choose b equals to 10. You can read that in the problem, right? We're just trying to understand the input and the output only. So the resultant was come to be 5, right? The value of x has changed to, this is a and this is now x. This is the new x. So x, now b is 10, so we can subtract minus 10, right? Minus b is even, so the condition is satisfied, and again the answer will be minus 5, right? So now we have reached the output, which is minus 5, and how many cleanings we required? We required 2 cleanings, right? So we are going to output 2. So you can see here, this is what you can see in the sample output. In the second test case, we have 2, right? Similarly, in the third test case, you can see we are given 0 as x and y as this, right? So let's try to understand uh, how we can implement this problem, right? So the first step is that whenever you are given this values of x and y and the test cases, we will first write the code to accept the sample input, and then only we are going to perform something else, right? So here I am going to start programming in C++. First I will include the standard input.h, and then I will create a main function very quickly, right? Inside of this main function, I will create a variable t which will uh, which will hold the number of test cases that are there inside of the problem, right? Let me all right, so we have the number of test cases as integer, and we are going to use scanf, right, which is used to basically take input from the user, and input is we are going to take the number of test cases, right? So for scanning integer we use percentage d sign separated by a comma and t, right? So in this way we are taking t as the input. So we will provide the number of test cases, and now we are going to run a while loop for all the test cases, and every time we run a loop we are going to decrease the value of t by 1, right? So initially if t given is 1, so we will run this loop only one time, right? So for all the test cases we are going to perform the similar operations. That is the first task you need to do when you are doing problem solving. You will have to make sure that the compiler will be able to scan the test cases, the number of test cases, and we will also have to scan the values of x and y in each of the test case, right? So here we are going to create an integer variable x, right? This hold the value of x from the input, right? Now there is an important thing to understand here. In the problem you can see there are some constraints here which are very important to understand, right? You can see the values of x, this second constraint. You can see here this is the second constraint. The values of x and y has to be less than equal to 10 raised to the power 9, right? So the values can be it has to be less than equal to 10 raised to the power 9. So we cannot use int, we will have to use long int, right, to cover that range. Then again we will create another variable which will take the value y. So we have x and then we have the value y, and now we are going to scan these values because the compiler will send these, right? So the compiler will send these two values with a space, right? So the file will you can see here in the sample input there is x, and then we will have to make sure there is a space, and then we will scan the value of y, right? So let's see how we can do this. Here I'm just going to create a scanf function, make a call to the scanf function, right? And then we are going to scan the values of x and y, x comma y, and we are going to use ampersand operator, which is basically logical and, right, because we are going to reference it. This is the way to basically scan two integers. Here also it has to be ampersand, right? It is very important to put ampersand here. And in scanf, since x and y are long integer, we are going to use percentage l long integer, right? And then we are going to add for y we have to add long integer, right? So these are the two long int, right? Li. We are going to just make sure that these two values are scanned by the compiler. So now what we have done is we are now managing the input file, right? The input is given as test cases. We are scanning the test cases. We are running the while loop for all the test cases, and then we are scanning the values of x and y, right? So that's the first thing you have to do. Then we will study how to solve the problem, right? So the next step, which I am going to mark as step 2, is that we will have to create a variable d, which is the difference variable, and it will be equal to y minus x. Why we are doing this? Because the target that we are getting, right, we will have to check, we have to add this target value to x to get to y, right? So we will have to capture this value, right? There are two cases inside of this problem which you will have to consider. The value in this first case, you can see the value of x is less than the value of y, right? So 0 is less than 5. In the second case, you can see the value of x is greater than the value of y, right? So what I'm going to do here is, in this while loop, we're going to work in this while loop for each test case after scanning the values of x and y. I'm going to create a if case, right? So if the value of y is greater than equal to x, this is the first case, right? And for the second case, I'm just going to write if the value of y is less than equal to x, right? So these are the two cases that we can encounter. So for each of them we are creating separate cases, right? Separate if cases. You can see here, if y is greater than equal to x, we are going to run this inside of this case, or else we are going to run inside of this case, which is y less than equal to x, right? So we have not even started the problem yet. We have just taken the input file and we are considering two cases. One where the value of y is greater than equal to x, and the another one is where y is less than equal to x. Now we are going to capture the value of difference, right? We want to calculate the difference between x and y, so that we will know how much we need to add to the value of x to get y, right? And similarly, how much we need to subtract from x to get y, because that is our target. We want to reach from x to y, so we will have to perform the addition and subtraction, and for that we need to know what is the difference, right? So very quickly, I'm going to just create a variable d here, right? Let's create it here only, int d, and let's initialize it to 0, right? Initially the difference is 0. Now here I'm going to say that the value of d is equals to y minus x. So d, the difference, is basically the target value which I have to add or subtract on the basis of what is the value of x, so that I will be able to reach y, right? And we are going to do this in both of these cases, if the value of y is greater than equal to x, or if the value of y is less than equal to x. All right, so now here you can see we are done with the second step. We are capturing the value of d y minus x, right? So now let's move on to a very important step. Let's consider this particular case, right, where the value of x is 0 and the value of y is 5. Now this case, you can see y is greater than x, right? So actually we are in this case, this one, right? So now you can see here the difference, which is d, will be equal to y minus x. Y minus x is 5 minus 0, which is equal to 5. So difference is equal to 5, right? Which basically means that if I will add 5 to x, I will get y, right? Very simple. We have just subtracted, we have just seen what is the distance that we require. 5 is the difference, right? We add 5 to x and we will get y. One important thing to understand is these two constraints, right? We will have to perform addition and subtraction by considering these two cases, that it is odd or even. So what we are going to do is we are going to check that the difference is odd or even, right? We have to check if it is odd slash even. And remember, we are considering the case when y is greater than x, right? First we will focus on this case only, right? Because there are so many cases in a single problem. You will have to pick the particular cases, and then you will have to go inside of those cases. If you will consecutively start analyzing all the cases, you are going to just get a lot of confused, right? So we are considering y is greater than x only, right? For that we have got the difference. Now we are going to check whether this is odd and even, right? We already know the way to check in programming is we can just take the modulus 2 and we will check whether it is equal to 0, right? We know that if this difference is 5, right, it means first of all y is greater than x, right? If the value of y is greater than x, it means that I have to add some value to x to get y, right? That's very simple. Now that value which we want to add, it has to be odd according to our constraint, right? That's why we are checking the value of d, right? So if the value of d will be odd, we can simply add it to the value of x, right? So in this case, you can see if I will try to check whether this is even or not, right? This is an odd number, so I'm going to take odd here. So what you can do is you can simply add it. So x is 0 and d is 5, and it is actually satisfying the condition that a has to be odd, right? So 5 is odd, and we are going to write 5 here, which is y, right? So this is the first cleaning, right? According to the problem, every operation that we are going to perform, every addition or subtraction, we are going to call it as first cleaning. In this case, if we have got the value of d as odd, we are just going to print 1, right? We are just going to print 1. Why we are printing 1? Because in the first cleaning only, in the first cleaning means in the first operation only, we have got the result, right? So let's write the program for that. We are going to first check the value of d by using this case, right? Here d is even, right? If it is equal to 0, it is even. Then I'm going to write the else case. Else case means that d is odd. Now if d is odd, we know that we can directly add it to the value of x, and we are going to just print 1, right? So the way to do is we can use the printf function, or you can even use cout, right? And we are going to print 1 here, and then we will go to the next line, right? So I'm going to write here like this. Remember that the output that is shown here, you will have to use the same formatting, right? So after every test case, you are going to leave a line, right? So here you can see I am just printing the value of 1. I hope you have understood this, that why we are printing the value of 1. The single most reason is that in the first cleaning only, we have got, in the first operation only, we have got the result, and it is also satisfying the condition, right? So if you have any problem related to this, you can ask me, and then we will move on to the next conditions or the next cases. And by that time, I'm just going to answer some of the questions here which people are asking. What about data structures? See, when I started this series, a lot of students told me that you can start data structures algorithms. So what I'm going to do is, in different live sessions, I'm going to pick up data structures or competitive programming. I'm going to just do a mixture of them. If you have any question related to this, you can just ask me in the comments, or we will start with the next step, which is going to be step 3, right? One important thing, the whole code for this live class, I will upload it on the Android application. I've already given the link to that in the description of this video, right? So now let's move on to the coding part, right? So we have considered this case when d is odd. What will happen when d is even, right? What will happen when d is even, right? We will pick this case later on, right? So I'm just going to write here later. First, we will pick this case, which is when the value of y is less than equal to x, right? So let's pick this case where x and y, x is equal to 4 and y is equal to minus 5. So the value of x, right, the condition is y is less than x, which is our second case. You can see here, this is our second case. We are in this case now. We will calculate the value of d, right? So d is equal to y minus x, y is minus 5. Just wait for a second. Alright, so y is 5 and x is 4. Just wait a second. Alright, so the difference minus 5 minus 4, which is minus 9. Right, so d is equal to minus 9 here. So the difference here, just take the magnitude, it is 9. Right, so if the value of y is less than x, it is obvious something from x to get y. Right, the only motive of this problem is that you are given x, you are given y, and you will have to add something or subtract something to get to y. In this case, since y is less than x, right, have to subtract from the x to reach y. Right, how much do we need to subtract? Difference is 9. Right, we're just concerned with the magnitude. So here you can see 9 is what I want from here, from x. Right, x minus, let me write it as d. X is 4 initially, the value of d is 9. Right, it will give me 4 minus 9 will give me minus 5, which is the output. But you can see here, I've already told you this, that this condition is not allowed. Value of difference is 9, which is an odd number, and according to the constraints we cannot do this. Right, so in this case the d is odd. Right, so for odd we will have some different conditions. So again here in this case also we are going to write if d modulus 2 equal to 0, like this. And here if the value of d is odd, we are going to handle it here. Right, so d is odd here, and I am again going to write it later because we are going to consider the cases where we need more than one cleanings. We are going to consider these cases later. Right, so if d is odd, there will be more than one cleaning, so we are going to do it later. And here also, in this case, when y is greater than equal to x, we are going to handle this case later. Right, first we will print only when where one case is only one cleaning is required. Right, so if the value of d is even, we can simply printf 1, right, with an end line according to the formatting. Right, now let's see why we are printing 1, why there is only one cleaning when d is even. Right, so here you can see if the difference is even, then we can directly subtract it and we will get the result. Right, so let me take a case for that so that you will be able to understand it. Let me take a different case than what is given inside of this problem. Instead of taking 4 minus 5, I'm going to choose some different values of x and y. Right, so let's choose 5 and let's choose 3. Right, here you can see y is less than x, difference is 2. Right, we're just concerned with the magnitude, difference is equal to 2, and 2 x minus d should be equal to 3. Right, x is 5 minus d is 2, which is 3, and this operation is allowed because 2 is an even number and it is satisfying the constraint. Right, so if in the first, you can see this is the first cleaning. Right, if we have only one cleaning, we will have it only when D is even, right? And that's what I have done here. You can see this is the case y less than equal to x, and here we are just saying that if D is even, just print 1. So now we have handled the cases where you just need to do only one time cleaning, right? We are just going to print 1 here. Now let's move on to the first case here. Alright, let's do the else part, which I have put it later on, right? So here what I'm just going to do is just wait. If D is odd, which is this case, you can see, you can study this case where D is odd, right? What we need to do is, let me just draw a timeline, sorry, a number line. Let me draw a number line here to show you how many cleanings it is required, right? So let's start from here. We have 0, 1, 2, 3 and 4, then -1, -2, -3, -4 and -5, right? Here it will be -6, 5 and 6 and so on, right? So in this case you can see the value of x is 4, y is 5, right? So here we have x and here we have y. So we will have to make an operation so that we can go from here to here, right? From 4 to -5, which is our desired uh, solution. You can see the distance between these two positions is D, which is odd, right? So we cannot subtract an odd number because it is according to this condition. You can see that B has to be even. So from here to here I cannot subtract 9. So what I'm going to do is, instead of subtracting 9, what we can do is we can subtract 10, right? What will happen if I will subtract with 10? The value of x will get changed to -6, because 4 minus 10 equals to -6, right? So now x is here, but again our destination is y, right? So here I have applied an operation which is x minus b, right? My b is 10, which is an even, that it is an even number. So that's why we can perform this, right? If it will be 9, we cannot do that. So that's why we are taking the next integer. We are now here, right? So x is here now. This is the new x. Now from here, we will have to go here. And for that, you can see the value of x is equal to -6. And we want to change this value to -5. For that, we will have to add some integer to x to get here, right? And we can add 1. So from here to here, what I can do is I can add 1. Now we will have to check whether we can apply this operation, right? This is the first cleaning and this is going to be the second cleaning. But remember that whenever we are trying to do an add operation, right, which is x plus 1, the a has to be odd, right? So you can see that 1 is odd here, 1 is an odd number. So that's why we are able to reach here. So how many cleanings it required to reach from x to y in the case when y is less than x and d is an odd, right? It will take 2 cleanings. This is the first cleaning and this is the second cleaning. And for every case, it is going to take 2 cleanings only. One cleaning will take you one position behind and then you can add one position because you are allowed to, because 1 is an odd number. So that's why you will have 2 cleanings, right? So here in the case y is less than equal to x, right, which is our this one, y is less than x, d is odd. So let's move on to the case where d is odd, which is this one. Right, now we are doing it. How many cleanings are required? We have already seen from the number line that there are 2 cleanings that are required. Right, so I'm just going to write 2 here and an end line for the formatting purpose, right? So now we have done these 2 cases where d is odd and even and the value of y is less than equal to x, right? The last thing that is remaining and which is very important here is when d is even and the value of y is greater than x, right? So let's consider this case. This is the last case and then we will be able to end this live session. Alright, so if you have any question related to these steps, you can ask me in the chat. First, let me create another. Alright, so now we are in the case when the value of y is greater than, let's come here. We are in the case when y is greater than or equal to x, right? This is the case, and within this case we have a case when d is even and odd. We have already done for the even part, right? No, we have not done for the even part, we have done for the odd part. We have done for the odd part and now we are going to do for the even part, right? So let's assume a case here of x and y and let's see how many cleanings are required, right? How many operations of first of all, these are the restrictions that I'm going to write here. This is a has to be odd and b has to be even. These are the 2 cases, or I can say 2 constraints, and the case is y is greater than equal to x and d is even, right? D is the difference. Alright, so let's take some examples here. We will take a very simple example. Let's take 1 comma 5, or let's take 2 comma 8, right? 2 comma 8. So you can see the value of the value of y is greater than x and the difference is 6, right? The difference is 6 and it is an even number, right? So we are actually in this case of this code. We are here in this case where d is even, right? Now let's see what can we do to change the value of x to y, what operations are required and how many operations, right? We are interested in how many operations, or we should say according to the problem, how many cleanings, right? Is it required when the value of y is greater than or equal to x and the difference is even? How many cleanings are required? That is our primary question. Now you can see here, I will again draw a number line. This is a very important problem, and if you will understand this problem, you can also implement it yourself. So we have to start from 0 here, then 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and finally 8, right? Let's add some more numbers. Alright, so now the value of x is 2, right? Y is 8, right? Y is 8, it is here. So from this position we will have to reach this position, and what is the difference? Difference is 6, right? So the question is, can we add 6 to this x to get y is 8, right? X is 2. So 2 plus 6 will give me 8. So the answer is yes. But is it satisfying the constraints? You will have to see that also. So this in the constraint, but we are taking it even. So this is not allowed, right? So I'm just going to write here that we are not allowed to do this, right? Now what we need to do is we have to pick up some other value of a. Now the first important thing is y is greater than equal to x, which means we will have to perform an addition operation in x to get y, right? That's a very simple thing. We will have to perform this case x plus a, but we will have to pick a which has to be odd. So we cannot put 6, which is the difference, right? So instead of 6, we are going to pick the next number, which is 7. So 2 plus 7 will give me 9, right? So x will go from here to here. Now see this very carefully, because there are some tricks inside of this simple case. If you will miss these tricks, you will not be able to solve this problem. X has gone to here, and we have applied this operation, which is x plus 7. 7 is odd, you can see. So I'm going to write odd here, right? So we can apply this, and this is going to be our first cleaning, right? First cleaning means first operation. Now from here we have to go to y, right? Because that is our primary objective. We will have to make sure that the x reaches y. For that I will have to subtract 1 from x, right? And then I will be able to reach that. But again, I cannot perform this operation because the value of b is odd here, and I am not allowed to put an odd integer here. Only even values are allowed here, right? So I cannot write x minus 1. So this one is not allowed, right? So I'm just going to erase all this, right? Minus 1 is not allowed. So what I'm going to do is, in the second cleaning, since we are allowed to take even, instead of 1 I will take 2, right? So x will go from here to 7 after applying the operation x minus 2, where 2 is an even number and it is satisfying our constraint, right? And this is going to be our second cleaning. So we have done 2 cleanings, but we are not able to reach the value y. Again we will have to perform one more operation, right? So now x is here. From this position x wants to reach y here. So what I can do is I can perform an operation x plus 1, right? 1 is odd and it is allowed according to our constraints, right? So what are the 3 cleanings or the 3 operations required for x to reach y? The first one is x plus 7, the second one is x minus 2, and the third one is x plus 1. So there are going to be 3 cases or 3 cleanings, right? So we are going to print 3 for the case when d is even, right? One important trick which most of the programmers will skip at this point. One important point about this whole problem is that if you want to reach from 2 to 9, the difference is 6, right? We know that the difference is 6. Now this number 6 is an even number, and so we are not able to add it, which is not allowed. But you can see that 6 can be divided into the sum of 2 odd numbers. And not only 2 odd numbers, they are also equal in magnitude, right? They are also equal in magnitude. So 6 is an even number and we can divide it into two odd numbers which are also equal in magnitude. So what we can do is, instead of doing these three operations, in this case we can, because two odd numbers which are also equal in magnitude, we can do the cleaning in only two steps, right? In the first step, I will add 3. You can see 3 is an odd number, so I can add it. So what is x? X initially was equal to 2, right? So 2 plus 3 gives me 5, and again I can perform the operation x plus 3, right? Because it is allowed, you can perform the operation again, but remember that the value of a has to be equal. You cannot change the value of a because it is given inside of the problem, which you can see here. This is very important case, right? You can see here he cannot change a or b once he starts cleaning, right? So you cannot do like this. In the first operation you are adding 5, in the second you are adding 3. This you will have to make sure that once you have chosen a value of a, throughout the whole cleaning process the value of a will have to be equal, right? So for this specific case, you can see 6 can be divided into two odd numbers. So the number of cleanings required is 2, and then we are going to print 2 here, right? So how can we do this programmatically, right? How programmatically? Now you can see this is d equals to the difference. So inside this we are going to, we are in this case, you can see here we are going to just check the value, right? Let's create another variable int. Let's call it as a temporary variable, right? In this case we are going to assign temp is equals to d divided by 2, right? Because inside of this case you can see there are so many cases coming up. We will have to make sure that when we are trying to solve a problem we explore them one by one and inside of one each other, right? So the base case was y greater than equal to x, then the case was d is even, and now we have this case, right? So how can we get this case? What we are just going to do is we are just going to divide the value of d by 2, right? So the value of d is 6, and when we divide it by 2 we get 3. So if the value of d is odd, we are going to print 2, right? Because 6 divided by 2 means 3 and 3 is odd, which means we can represent 6 in the form of two odd numbers, right? If this difference will be 8 and I divide it by 2, the answer that I am getting is 4, which is an even number. And since it is an even number, it will require 3 steps, right? It will require 3 steps, so we are going to print 3. So within the case d is even, we have two more cases when the d divided by 2, which is our temporary variable, right? We inside of this case we have again two more cases when temp is odd and when temp is even. So if temp is odd, we are just going to say that there are only two required cases. Why? The reason is that we can represent the difference as in the form of two odd numbers which are also equal in magnitude, right? So 8 divided by 2, you can see it is 4, right? Similarly we can do it with others also. So here inside this I'm going to create another case which will be the value of temp is odd or even, right? And we can check that very simply using the modulus operator, right? So if the value of temp is even, right, we can see that if the temp is even, this is actually temp, which is d divided by 2. If it is even, then how many operations we are going to require? 3, right? 1, 2 and 3. You can check for different cases, like for example, let me take a simple case 1, 5, where D is equals to 4, right? I'm going to create a timeline here, sorry, the number line, 0, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. From 1 we need to reach 5, right? So X is here, Y is here, the difference is 4. We are not allowed to subtract even number, right? We're not allowed to add odd number. So the Y is 5 and this is the difference, 5 minus 1, it is 4. All right, so now what we are going to do is, okay, so we can directly add 4 and we will get 5. Let's make it 6, right? I'm going to make it 6 and D will be 5, right? D will be 5. So Y is actually here. This is 7 and so on. So X is here, Y is here at 6. The difference is 5. And again, sorry, we can take, if we will add 1 plus 5, it is going to be 6. So in the first cleaning only we will get that. So let me change it to Y only. Wait, let me just clean this up, right? So D is 4, it is correct. 1 plus 4 equal to 5 is not allowed because 4 has to be odd, right? It is not odd, it's even, so it is not allowed. So what we are going to do is we are going to do X plus 5, right? X plus 5 is allowed, so we will be able to reach here. 5 is an odd number. Then again we will have to reach at the Y position, right? So this is Y. Y is 5. So 1 plus 5 will give me 6, right? So Y will be here. X plus 5 equal to 6. 5 is an odd number, so it is allowed. So one jump is here. That's the first cleaning. In the second cleaning, we can take even jumps. So we will have to take 2 jumps. And then again, we will take one more jump, right? So there will be 3 jumps when the value of D is 4 and the value of temp is even, right? So 4 divided by 2 is 2 and it is an even value, right? So very simply what we are going to do is write the if else case. Here temp is even, and if temp is even, what we're just going to do is we're just going to printf 3 here, right? And if temp is odd, I'm just simply going to print the value using the printf to be 2, right? So very simply, we have covered this. Make sure that you use this code and try to understand all the test cases yourself by making your own cases and understanding each and every case here. So this is the final code. We have one case here, y greater than equal to 0 or less than. Inside this case, we have two cases where D is even and temp is even. Inside this, we have one case where D is even and D is odd, right? So here D is even. So what I'm just going to do now is I'm just going to copy this and let's try to submit this code. I'll just try to submit this code. Right, I've pasted it. All right, let's try to submit it. All right, so there is some problem in this code. Let me take a look at that. So here, let's write if temp modulus 2 is not equal to 0, right? It means that the temp is odd. We are printing 1 here, right? So let's submit it again and see if there are any other problems. Okay, so it has been successfully submitted. Okay, so there is some more error also. So here there should be no space. All right, here we have D, and here we are checking the condition. Okay, so we have some more cases here. I've forgotten two important cases, which is when the value, you can see the problem here. Inside of the problem, it is mentioned that the number of cleanings can be 0, right? So here I will write if the value of D is equals to 0, then just print the value 0 here, right? Very important case. We will have to make sure that we read the problem, or else we will miss these cases. So number of cleanings can be 0. It is given in the problem. You can see that. So in both of these cases, we are going to check that, right? And if it is 0, we are going to just print 0 here, and it's D divided by 0. Like let's submit this program. Here you can also test with some custom inputs also, right? So let's try to run this with this custom input, and let's see what is the answer. The output is 2 here, which is correct. All right, so we can remove this from here, and now it will be perfect, I think so. Code is fine. We just need to do some changes. We just forward some important cases. All right, again it is saying wrong answer. Let's check it again, right? All right, so D will also have to be long int, right? It can also be long integer, and similarly the temp can also be long int, right? Very important step, because it is already given there. Then we will check these values. If D equals to 0, we will have to move this case inside here, right? If D is even, then only we are going to do this, which is if D equals to 0, we are going to print 0, right? That's what we are doing here. And if this is not true, we are going to go here and find this case, right? So if D, this case here, if D equals to 0, we are going to print 0, else we are going to print these values, right? And then we have these cases. All right, let's try this again. I hope that it will be right this point, or we will find whether there are some errors in it or not. Right, let's see. All right, again it is saying wrong answer. If y is greater than this, It has to be the else case. Alright, so I'm messing up with some brackets here. I will give you the correct code. It is correct, but we are just missing something here. I will give the correct code inside of the Android application, and you will be able to run it and submit. You can see the custom inputs are working well. For 2.8 we are giving the output 2, and let's check for some other input cases also, right? So if I will put 0 comma 5 and run this, then it should output 1, which is also true, right? If I put 4 comma minus 5, it is giving the right output, right? So the program is correct. Maybe we are doing something wrong here, right? So I will give the right answer I will give this whole code in the description of this live stream and in the Android app also, so you can run it. So that's all for this live stream. I'm just going to end this.